I'm Rosie Hardy, this is Rosie Hardy Gardening, and this is the last Q&A for 2024. If you are enjoying our videos, please do subscribe. Let's start with the questions. Hello Rosie, my Angel Eye Pelargonium I have outside in the summer are in my unheated conservatory now. That's good to hear. I took cuttings off them, but the main plants have gone so straggly. Should I cut them down again now? I would have liked to have left them to grow even bigger for outside in pots, as I have had for the last 2 years. So don't worry about the cutting back now, because plants will always grow back bushier and better once you have given them a prune. And if they are looking straggly in your conservatory, then by all means give them a good haircut back, make them into a really good shape. You don't have to go too far, but just get rid of those etiolated branches. Now by etiolated, that means that you would normally get, say, this amount of growth between the internodes, but when the light levels are much lower, then you get longer, this sort of growth between a leaf here and a leaf here. So basically you get these long straggly growths, and it's all to do with light levels. So just cut back to nice nodes just above a leaf and make sure that they are in as much light as you possibly can. I would also say keep them relatively dry, do not overwater them, and that is the best way to keep them. Okay. Hi Rosie, thanks for the videos. Do Thanksgiving cactus like a lot of room, or do they prefer a snug fit in their pots? I dropped one recently breaking the pot and I'm not sure what they like. Okay, so Thanksgiving cactus, Christmas cactus, Easter cactus are all Schlumbergera, and they are different species of those plants. They all have different shaped leaves. So the Thanksgiving cactus comes out during Thanksgiving, that sort of time of year. Christmas cactus come out Christmas time, blah blah, and Easter cactus come out at Easter. They all have, as I say, all have slightly different leaves, different shaped flowers. So that's the difference. But they all like the same sort of neglect, I would say, in their containers. So if it has fallen out and you've broken the pot, then you can get a pot slightly bigger. The key thing for them though is the material that you put into those pots for them to grow into. So it's all about that growing medium. It needs to be bark based, it needs to have good aeration, so you need to add in a good amount of grit to make it aerated, and then they want to be moist but they don't want to be overwatered, and just very infrequently, 2-3 times in the year, give them a little bit of houseplant food, and other than that they'll be fine. But they do like a bit of light, so they need to be in a well lit area and then they will flower. So yeah, pot it back up, just give it a good amount of compost, you should be fine. Oh, the other thing to say with that is as well, it needs to be slightly on the acidic side, the medium that you're putting it into. And if you're using a bark-based medium, it will already be slightly acidic, so that is absolutely fine. This is one. I am overwintering a small collection of scented leaves and other pelargoniums and wonder if it's okay for them to wilt almost completely in the pots when it's cold. I've seen videos where they're left dry and bare root over winter. I don't like that idea. Would appreciate your thoughts. Okay, so with pelargoniums in containers put somewhere, you don't actually say whether they're in a cold greenhouse or if you're on a windowsill, but that's fine. Either will make not a lot of difference as long as they are cold, kept relatively dry. If they wilt and the leaves then sort of crinkle up, cut the leaves off. You should technically have your pelargoniums slightly cut back. If you are continually growing them, say on a windowsill in a house, that's different. You will be keeping them up in sort of good leaf and you'll be watering. That's a different condition. So when they're in a cold greenhouse, cold conservatory, allow them to dry out a bit, and then take off any of the leaves that dry down and keep them pruned to a good site so that when they start to regrow and you get good light levels and the temperature increases, you can water them, you can feed them, and they'll get away really nicely. So I hope that helps you. Can I ask for your help, as I need to hide my ugly heat pump in the garden? I can't plant within 2 feet of the pump as it blows out cold air down to about -13. Can you recommend a suitable plant? Okay, so this is quite a tricky one to actually come at. And I would always suggest a native evergreen as being one of your best things to put there, because it will be tolerant of all sorts of situations. Now, you don't tell me your location. I'm assuming that you're in the United States, but I don't know which part. And also, you don't say what soil type you're in. So those are things that I would need to know to be able to give you a better idea. But I always think for hiding ugly things that are in a garden, then you can't go far wrong than using something like yew or a holly, and maybe even a mahonia, because they're all tough, they will tolerate cold, they will tolerate being there, and they'll give you a reasonable screening, and you can prune them to what you want them to be. So I hope that helps you. Right, this one comes from someone in France, and they are a new gardener and they want to know about fertilizing in general, especially for seedlings and growing on. So seedlings starting off and not growing very well, being very, very slow to get going, is quite often to do with the light levels, and it could be that you are putting your seed in too early. So think about that. So time of year when you're putting your seeds in makes a difference, because if it's very dull times, they will take longer to germinate. So that is one thing to think about. Once the seedlings have germinated and you have then pricked them out, or even if you have got them growing in cells as individual plants and then you're moving them on to the next stage, that is when you want to be liquid feeding. Now, here in the UK, I would always recommend a product called MaxiCrop. That is a seaweed fertilizer. It is a very good, very easy to use, and you shouldn't be able to overfeed with that. So it's given as a liquid feed, so you put in usually a capful into a watering can, look at what it says about the dilutions, and then you water that on. So if you've got plug plants sitting there and they've been sitting there for say a month or so, yes, give them some food. If you've potted on into a potting medium and there is no slow release fertilizer within that potting medium, then give them some liquid feed. Now, you don't have to do it every watering, probably every other watering until you put them outside into their final place. And that is basically where you are. And in general, yes, plants need a little bit of food to get them going. Once they have got going, they should then be able to produce their own food, because they are photosynthesizing, so they're using their leaves to create the food that they require. But they don't always get enough food if you're growing them in containers, so you have to give them a little bit more. It is best to give them a little and often, but not too much. So using something like the seaweed food-based fertilizers, that is the best way to go. I hope that helps you. Recently, I set up an email newsletter, and if you want to sign up, then please click in the comments link below, or scan the QR code on the screen now. If you sign up, you get an exclusive video. This is a video of me explaining colour combinations and plant combinations in real gardens. Hi Rosie, I have a white shrub rose. It's been in my garden about 35 years. I'm not very good at pruning. Would it be okay to cut it right back down now, or wait until the spring, as it has abundance of flowers and leaves in the first flush, then loses the majority of its leaves, but still flowers, but looks really straggly? Okay, so you're also asking, has it come to the end of its life? Now, this is a really good age for a shrub rose, and I am of the opinion that if plants are starting to struggle, even with good pruning and a bit of food, you are only going to keep it going for so long. So why not just go for the jugular and make that decision, right, it's coming out, you take it out, you get rid of the plant, you then have the possibility of putting in so many different plants and putting in something completely different in there. And think of it as a positive, as now, oh great, because I love it when my gravel garden something doesn't like it anymore. It takes so long in my gravel garden to dig a hole. If something dies, then I've already got a hole there to put something else in. So I always look at it as a positive. You lose one plant, but then you have so many different options to put something else in there that will give you just as much pleasure for as long as you've had this rose. So think about this as a positive step, and I would say, yes, take it out. If you really can't bring yourself to do that, you could give it one more year, give it a cut back, give it a feed. But is it worth it? I don't think so. Okay. I've written on one of your other videos, but just in case I'm copying it here. Right, this is about a problem called leaf hopper on plants, and it is giving white marks on the leaves and translucent little dots all over, and it's on salvias, peppermints, all the herbs. It's on roses and blackberries, and you know, the insects jump away when you're there. Yeah, absolutely. This is leaf hopper. Now, if you have it on things like sage and mint family and most of the herbs, it is one sort of leaf hopper. If it's on roses and blackberries, then it's another type of leaf hopper. There are a lot of different leaf hoppers around, and they go on specific plants. Now, they are active from early April right the way through till October. They are very good at what they do, which is basically they live on the underside of the leaf and they are sucking the sap out from the underside of the leaf. So when you walk past initially, and unless you knock into the leaf, you don't see them jumping around. It's only probably about 2-3 weeks later you start to notice the little white spots all over the leaf. Now, they're not going to damage the plants. They don't kill the plants, they don't damage them, other than you get this horrible marking on them, and it can look quite awful. They go on things like Nepetas and all of those sorts of plants, and all of your salvias, yes. So they don't damage the flower. You still get lots of flower, absolutely no problem whatsoever. Now, they overwinter by laying their eggs on the underside of the leaves that are there, in beside the veins, so you can't see them. So they're very good at sort of camouflaging themselves. So if you see the adults, they might be on the top and they go off, but then all of the young are underneath, and they, every now and again, if you turn a leaf over, you will see little white capsules on there. That's where the stages of the nymphs have shed their skin and gone into being a bigger, and then eventually they become the adult, and then they lay the eggs. Now, I have a feeling that we're actually making this problem slightly worse in certain garden areas, because we're all going, or a lot of us are going, for this fact that we leave our plant material up there to protect the crowns of the plants. Now, this also gives a lot of overwintering space for all of these insects to stay there. Now, we want more insects, but do we want all of these leaf-sucking insects? It's difficult. They are very good food for birds, ladybirds, ground beetles. So the more of the birds and the ladybirds and ground beetles you can encourage in, the less you will have a problem with these leaf hopper. So I would suggest you can use something like an SB invigorator. Now, it's not a totally organic thing, but it's also not a true insecticide, so therefore it's not going to kill a lot of other things off. But what it does do is it creates a barrier on the leaves, and therefore you don't get as much damage, and the plants are growing better for this. Now, I would suggest that you clear away as much of the old debris, old leaf that you can from beneath your plants, and then in the spring, early on, when you're doing your cleaning up, cut your plants right down to ground level, get rid of all of that debris, and that way you will get rid of a lot of the overwintering eggs. As soon as your plants start to come through in the spring and start growing, apply the SB Invigorator and give them 2 or 3 doses of that, and hopefully you will reduce the numbers and therefore the amount of damage that you will see. I hope that helps you. Hello Rosie, what do you believe to be the ultimate replacement for peat or coir in gardening? Now this is a difficult one, isn't it? But if you think back, and you know, a lot of people are new gardeners and they've never gardened without peat or coir. But back in the Victorian times, back in, you know, even in the early 30s and 40s, here in the UK, we didn't use peat and coir. We made our own composts. We used our own soil. We mixed that with our own compost and made our own potting media. And that way, I think we're going to be heading back into that situation. And therefore, what do I think is going to replace it? I think our own composting. And so anything that we can compost down, that is what we need to be using, and I think that is where it's going to go. So we're going to be using leaf litter, we're going to be using the grass cuttings. So instead of us sending it off in our green bins to somewhere else, I know some people don't have the room to be able to compost, absolutely understand that, but if you do, then why are you sending stuff off to in a green bin somewhere unless it's something you don't want? Most of what you've got, including sticks, etc., can all be chopped up and go into making a compost, or they can go into lining the bottom of raised beds to gradually break down and make you a good area. So I think we've all got to look at it in a different way, and it is our own composting that we are going to be using, plus finding an area in our garden where we can dig up soil and then we can throw our composting and have composting pits rather than going up with our compost. I think that's where we're heading. Hi Rosie, I have a Forsythia which has got 5 or 6 tall hollow stems. What is the best way to prune these? So Forsythia is one of these shrubs which sends up these really tall, thin, well, sometimes they're not that thin stems, and they're normally known as water shoots, and they go up. And really, when you see them going up in the middle of the summer, you should just go in there and cut them down to ground level, and then they will produce you your better growth that you want, which is flowering. So the best thing to do with these is to get them down, go as low as you can with them, try not to leave a stubby end on them, go down as low as you possibly can, and cut them out, basically. Hi Rosie, I'm looking for a shrub for winter interest. Winter flowers on acidic clay soil in partial shade. Thank you for giving me all of that information, because it really helps to narrow down what you can grow. Now there are some really lovely winter interest, just bark things that you can grow, but you would like some flowers, so that is absolutely fine. Now I have come up with 2 suggestions. There are plenty of other suggestions out there, but both of these are semi-evergreen, so that you're going to get a good amount of foliage as well as having good flower which has perfume. And both of these will grow on acidic clay in partial shade. So first one is Mahonia Winter Sun. Beautiful perfume on that, really, really lovely. Great fun. And then the other one, which is a slightly smaller growing shrub, is Sarcococca hookeriana vardignia and purple stem. So you need to get the purple stem variety because it is beautiful. You get this lovely dark green foliage, beautiful creamy white flowers with the most amazing perfume, and then this purple stem as well. So a lot of interest. That is a really good variety. Okay, that's the end of the Q&As for this year. Please do subscribe to the channel. Merry Christmas and a happy new year of gardening. If you want to watch another video of mine, YouTube thinks this one is perfect for you.